President Tinubu approves 35,000 provisional wage increase, waives value-added tax on diesel for 6 months. Oil prices steady as focus returns to supply outlook. Plus gold dips to 7-month low on strong dollar. Traders await U.S. data. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Musa Abubakar, your guide. I start by telling you that the federal government and leadership of trade unions met on Sunday to deliberate on how to address the dispute arising from the removal of subsidy on premium motor spirit following the provisional agreement between the two parties. It was agreed that the federal government will implement 35,000 naira as provisional wage award for all treasury-paid federal government workers for 6 months, following further consultation with President Bola Tinubu. That the federal government will fast-track provision of compressed natural gas buses to ease public transportation difficulties associated with the removal of PMS subsidy. Among other agreements, the president of the NLC, Joe Ajero, also spoke on behalf of Labour.
Nigerian worker, pertinent issues. I can't begin to reel them out here, but I am happy to say that after 4 hours, we have reached certain agreements that inure to the benefit of the Nigerian worker. Agreements on wage bill, agreements on committees, on salary increment, agreement on the CN buses, agreement on several other things, I believe, both TUC, Labour and government side. We will, hopefully, we expect that Labour will call a meeting of their various branches and executive tomorrow to present the agreements that have been reached. And we pray and we believe and we hope that the strike will be called off on Tuesday.
We have looked at almost all the issues, all the promissory notes, from the government. And we looked at how to translate them to reality, and to be workable. And then we're going to take those promises to our organs. Of course, these people here cannot just wake up and review and call off action. So, like he said, we're hopeful that our organs will have a look at them and give us a fresh mandate on what next to do.
Minister of Information and Culture Mohammed Idris, in a statement after the meeting, said all the parties agree that implementation of the agreement will be more effective when workers are at work. Now, Nigeria, since gaining her independence on October 1st, 1960, has transformed from a predominantly agrarian economy to becoming the largest economy in Africa. With a population of over 200 million people, the country possesses vast human and natural resources, offering significant potential for development and prosperity. However, the nation has encountered a fair share of challenges that have impeded its economic growth and stability. Despite these setbacks, Nigeria has made notable strides in some critical sectors, including agriculture, telecommunications, entertainment, and manufacturing. The country's entrepreneurship spirit has also encouraged the growth of small and medium-sized enterprises. As the country commemorates 63 years of independence, it is imperative to take stock of the progress made and chart the way forward. Our guest is Dr. Emeka Okengu, a renowned economist. You're welcome to Business Express.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Happy Independence Anniversary to every Nigerian.
Okay. Well, but before we delve into the conversation proper, let's see this background report by Benny Adams.
The Nigerian economy has been marked by massive changes in the last 6 decades. While modern Nigeria is dominated by agriculture and petroleum, efforts are being intensified towards diversifying the economy in line with global trends.
After the First Republic, those are our grandfathers. They did their best. The Great Zik of Africa, the Awolo Wars, the Sardauna, the Makama of Bida, the Tafawa Balewas. I think what they had in mind was the country itself, not about materialism. But from 1983, when the army took over, till date, it has not been well because of corruption. Corruption has barely destroyed all the strata of the economy. There is no reason why Nigerians should be poor. Nigeria fed the whole Africa with rice, the rice from Niger State. It fed this country, fed us, fed Africa. There were earnings of foreign exchange. Kaduna was busy producing maize, feeding Africa, feeding the whole country. Today, where is it?
From the Structural Adjustment Program of the military in 1986, which sought to, amongst other objectives, reduce dependence on the external sector and eliminate price distortions induced by overvalued currency, Nigeria has transitioned through administrations that centered on improving the macroeconomic environment, pursuing structural reforms, strengthening public expenditure management, and implementing institutional and governance reforms, with key policies of the reforms as privatization, deregulation, and commercialization. The present administration then decided to bite the bullet on the issue of subsidy.
The first subsidy is gone.
With subsidy out of the way and the unification of the exchange rate in effect, the road seemed cleared for more investment into the economy.
And so what that points to is that we have a situation where if government doesn't have the money, it needs to facilitate and allow private funding, other sources of funding, such as foreign direct investment, domestic investment by Nigerians in all areas.
Though Nigeria's economic growth slowed in the second quarter of 2023 as the gross domestic product grew by 2.51% year-on-year in real terms, in the coming months, all eyes will be on IMF's forecast of 3% growth expansion.
Well, from age 1 to 63, that's a long time. To look at Nigerian perspective, Dr. Okengu, how has Nigeria's economy evolved since gaining independence, and what are the significant achievements we should celebrate today?
Thank you very much. But I think first we should try to properly contextualize this age 63. Nigeria is not 63. as it were. Nigeria is 63 as an independent, in parentheses, country. Nigeria has always been there. People have lived there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. These people that have lived there now, from whatever structures that were applied, were all brought together using the amalgamation first and foremost. It's important you remember that there was an amalgamation in 1914, so that part of our history is also not lost. And then, the independence, or what you call the political independence of 1960. Well, but I guess for this show, or for this conversation, we're going to be focusing on Nigeria at 63, or Nigeria after 63. It's been a long, steady walk, tortuous in some instances, turbulent in some areas, calm in some, but just like any other development process will take. We have had, incursions of the military. Each time they come in, there's a lot of accolades. People want to, say, oh, you've done the right thing by intervening. And then at one breath, we've also now blamed, the military as being a very major, if you may, minus in our development trajectory. So it's been a mixed bag, as it were. That's what I'm trying to, put across. But in all, it's been a journey of hope. It's been a journey where against all odds, we are still standing. There have been a lot of very negative predictions about, what would have happened. I mean, the first report that came said that Nigeria was going to be imploding in 2015, I think. A lot of those implosions have happened. There's been a lot of insurrections, insurgencies, social disorder, social disorder. But somehow, we're still standing and we're still trudging on.
So what do we celebrate in terms of our evolution when you look at the economy, from agrarian to what we are seeing today, digital economy and innovation and things like that?
Well, I think the first we celebrate is that we're still a nation. Okay, we're still working towards nationhood. I mean, we're still a state, as it were, because if you want to look at it technically, we're actually a creation, of some interest. But I think we've been able to manage, those diversities to the point that somehow, there's been hues and cries, but we're still standing. That would be, for me, the primary point of, if you call it celebration, but I'll call it thankfulness. Okay, and if you look at the other aspects of what you might call celebration, if you want us to now dig it down, celebration calls for, very good times, very good things, very good outputs. I don't think we'll have too much, if you may, and this is my very, personal opinion, to celebrate in a country that was once the biggest exporter of, tin ore, the biggest producer of palm oil. We are claiming that we have the largest economy in Africa, yet our currency is probably, the weakest in even across our region. So if you want to talk about celebration and you want us to be real, I think we should start juxtaposing against issues. And that's why I say to you, one thing I know that we should thank God for is that today, Musa can still look at me and say my fellow Nigerian, and Ayodele can still look at me and say my brother. I mean, that's one very major one. But if you want to look at it from the perspective of our economic growth and our growth indices, regrettably, I don't think we've done very well.
Okay, let's look at the issues then. What do you think are the major challenges and the obstacles hindering Nigeria's economic progress so far?
The first is the lack of a plan. We don't have a plan, for me, and I stand to be corrected. And I'm just opposing, this statement against what, used to happen hitherto. You remember our rolling plans? They were long-term, they were based on 5 years, projections. Now, what we have are annual budgets. And what budgets basically do is that they focus on, three broad, aspects: capital expenditure, recurrent expenditure, and then your emoluments, okay, that are under the recurrent. So for you to have a country that all we do is to sit down every year, bring out a document, that presents what we are going to be spending. And then we never have ever in the past 20, 25 years, been able to now aggregate and say, okay, fine, why don't we now lump these things up, and then do a periodic review of how, this our yearly expenditure, has been able to impact positively on our people. That's the first one. Second is that you don't even have any data, okay, and we are spending, blindly. And what we're just doing is spend against projections and assumptions. Okay, we're assuming somebody says to you, each time they're making a speech, 200 million. Some people are kind enough to say over 200 million. Now, what that simply means that, you don't have a compendium of your people, who they are, where they are, what they do, what they can do. And then thirdly, you see, we have depended so much on the contracting model and the import substitution model that, somehow we didn't ever realize that the moment you begin to do import substitution that is not supported by production, that you are sliding, into import dependence. Today, we are 130% import dependent for practically everything, that we do, and it is at the very base level. Raw materials, are imported. Our finished products are imported. Our machinery and equipment are imported. So these are not things to cheer about, for a country that we boast of over 100 universities, over 60 or 70 research institutes, so we're really, I don't know how to put it now to sound right. I mean, this is not supposed to be a condemnation. We're supposed to be, looking at where we got it wrong. And if you look at when it seemed as if we are getting it right, most of these institutions that I've talked about were contributing very positively, integrally to national development. Research institutes were an integral part, okay, of national growth and development.
Okay, recently we've seen the present administration come up with different programs which is intended to address some of these issues that you've mentioned, the 8-point agenda. What do you make of the 8-point agenda? And looking at it in perspective, do you see the possibility of this actually addressing most of our problems on the long run?
Again, yes, we've always had these agendas. Remember, this is not the first agenda. There's not been any administration, that came in that didn't come with an agenda, okay, a program from 7 points or 9 points or 12 points or 8 points. But basically, there have been, policies that seem to look at, a lot of assumptions, okay, that are predicated on assumptions. And the first assumption is that you know how many people you are planning for. You understand? That's why I say to you that statistics and data, are very key in driving, through those policies that are very noble and doable. Okay, if you're talking about, for instance, the palliatives as a very major, policy focus. Okay, and you say you're going to be, looking at a percentage of, most vulnerable Nigerians. The question will be, how many are they? Where are they? What do they do? Where are their habitations? And then what makes them vulnerable? Okay, against the fact that if 55% of our population are also youthful. Okay, so if you're trying to answer these questions of trying for us to be inclusive, every government says, oh, the challenge we are facing is that there's no social inclusion. Now, what are the programs, that can be able to build social inclusion? The first program will be, data. Wouldn't that be where who is where, what kind of qualifications? The second will be, to review your education, systems, education infrastructure and facilities. Right now, you find out that public education is literally non-existent in Nigeria. Where it is, they're ill-funded, they're not fully operational. You don't have, the kind of quality, inputs vis-a-vis, those who are giving this, putting out this learning, and then you don't even have teaching aids to be able to support it. You don't have, the basic, school infrastructure. Now, you're looking at our medical infrastructure. If you go across Nigeria now, you'll be very surprised that, you know, I'll be shocked if up to 10% of our LGAs and our rural areas have any functional health systems. I remember that there's sometime, I think it was the one agency that had gotten me involved to look at the program they called the Community Health Initiative that they were trying to put together. You know, but the basic data showed that very, very few, you know, habitations in this country have good health facilities. And remember that they say health is wealth. So if you look at education and it's not functioning, you look at your health systems, it's not functioning. I was listening to a program by the new Minister of Transportation, or is it, yes, I think Transportation or something. No, it's not, Umahi, Minister of Works. And then he says that it took him, you know, 5 hours to travel from Lokoja to Abuja, and that he had tears in his eyes, you know, in that trip. Now, how does that now, you know, create that access for you to be able to, you know, build social inclusion or even build economic development? If Ajokuta to Abuja, that is less than, you know, 150 kilometers, you need 5 hours, you know, to be able to, you know, transverse it. And that's a major, you know, trunk, you know, from the southern part of the country into the heart of the nation's capital. So these are the issues. You know, if you don't juxtapose these issues against, you know, the policies, then you might run the risk of just taking them on face value.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Emeka Okengu. I'm afraid the time, we don't have much time. I'm afraid we'll just have to leave it there. It's an ongoing conversation. We'll continue to talk on how to move the country forward. Thank you very much. Now, moving on, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is developing a blueprint that will serve as a guide in developing the sector. Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, says the initiative is aimed at meeting 4 out of the 8-point agenda of the present administration.
Most agriculturists agree with the view of an Indian scientist who said in one of his quotations that if agriculture goes wrong, nothing else will have a chance to go right.
Don't rush into planning.
Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, shares this view and says the ministry is reviewing existing policies and programs with a view to charting a blueprint for implementation.
And we're coming out with a blueprint for a sustainable program. We have had instances where we have seen in the past programs will come and will not be sustained.
The proposed blueprints include security for rural farmers, climate change adaptation for food production, flood management and mitigation. This, the minister says, will be achieved through collective efforts and synergy with other ministries, such as water resources and that of environment.
All hands must be on deck to achieve food security. The armed forces must play a role to eradicate banditry and terrorism. A lot of land is lost to those dastardly acts. We can also look at flooding and turn it to be a blessing. We can use it for dry season farming, harvest the water somehow.
Food security tops the 8-point agenda of the present administration, with government's determination of eradicating hunger as well as creating wealth among the farming communities. The Ministry of Agriculture has 42 agencies covering crop production, livestock and veterinary services. Musa Aliyu.
Commodities go extended losses on Monday, for the 6th consecutive session to hit a near 7-month low on the dollar's strength, with traders digesting a key U.S. inflation report as they awaited a slew of job market data this week. Let's now see the prices of other commodities. This is where we end this edition of Business Express. We value your feedback, so keep the comments, observations, and suggestions coming. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTA's channel. Business Express returns on Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. I'm Musa Abubakar. Enjoy the rest of your day.